They buried her in silence. But the stars still remember what she did. The shattered hull of Station Velfall drifted through the void, its blackened ribs like the bones of a leviathan killed mid-scream. Radiation storms curled in quiet, tendrils across the wreckage. No distress beacons, no survivors, just silence, and beneath it, something watching. Far below, orbiting the pale, exiled world of Eden 6, a mining skiff named Lancer 09 crept through the ash-stained ring. The pilot was human, one of the last born in the outer descent. Her name was Commander Alara Khan, though the title was more memory than truth. Once a war strategist, now she was just another scavenger trading broken alloys for oxygen credits. Her eyes, once sharp with command, were dulled by loss and haunted by the weight of remembrance. And in her chest, where purpose used to burn, only fragments remained. She flicked the nav hollow with a calloused finger, steady hands betraying none of the storm behind her eyes. Her ship's eye, Tarn, buzzed low in her ear. Radiation spike detected. That wreck is Imperial Class 7 command carrier. Shouldn't be here. Alara narrowed her eyes. They don't lose those. Not unless someone wanted them to. The Empire of Vectra Dominion had ruled the galactic rim for nearly a century. Cold, precise, unchallenged. Their fleets didn't go missing. They eradicated planets, not the other way around. She docked with the ruin anyway. Against protocol. Against logic. But curiosity was one of the last human sins no regime had beaten out of her. Inside, the silence was suffocating. Fire had torn through the corridors. Bodies floated like ash motes burnt, twisted. Some were still trying to scream. But there were no scorch marks from plasma fire, no impact points from kinetic shells. This ship hadn't been attacked. It had been unmade. And then she saw it. Deep in the belly of the warship, locked behind layers of fractured alloy and warning glyphs etched in alien dialects, was a chamber still untouched. A black vault humming with a pulse that didn't belong to any Vectran frequency. Her hand trembled as she keyed the manual override. Tarn protested. That lock, it's Terran. Early Proto-Era, pre-diaspora. This isn't Vectran tech. She stepped inside anyway. Inside the chamber floated a coffin. Or maybe a cradle. Suspended in golden stasis fields, the capsule bore markings in forgotten Earth Standard Code. Human. Definitely human. But ancient. The kind etched on the weapons from the first expansion wars, long before Earth fell. Dust swirled around the chamber as her breath caught. There were two words engraved into the metal. Project Nyx. Alara stumbled back. That name wasn't in history. It wasn't in myths. It was buried deeper. Commander. Tarn's voice dropped. There's something inside. The stasis field flickered. And then a soft pulse echoed. Ba-dum, a heartbeat. A human heartbeat. Alara fell to her knees. Her people had been hunted, scattered, enslaved. Their colonies burned, Earth reduced to myth. But this was not a relic. This was a weapon. And someone had just woken her up. She wasn't made to survive. She was made to end wars. The chamber pulsed with unnatural quiet as the stasis field collapsed in a slow, shivering breath. The lights dimmed, heat surged. And then she opened her eyes. The woman inside the capsule sat up barefoot, unarmed, eyes glowing faintly gold like the dying embers of a long-dead sun. Her skin was unmarred, her body perfectly preserved. But her gaze it tore through time. Alara stepped back instinctively, hand drifting to her sidearm. She didn't draw it. The woman looked human, but she wasn't ordinary. Name? Alara asked, voice tight. The figure tilted her head. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, timeless. Designation: Nyx. Mission: status: incomplete. Where is Earth? Alara felt the air leave her lungs. Gone. Scorched. The Empire reduced it to stone and story generations ago. Something shifted in Nyx's expression. A single blink. A change in breathing. Like a machine tasting grief. For the first time, then my mission begins. Before Alara could ask what that meant, alarm screamed across the wreck. Tarn's voice cracked through comms. Multiple inbound signatures, Vectran patrol fleet. 6 cruisers, 2 destroyers. They found you. They always did. Humanity wasn't allowed to dig in the past. The Vectrans called it Protocol 7 no salvage. No memory, no Earth. Alara turned to Nyx, but the woman was already moving. Graceful. Controlled. Like a warhead given legs. Do you have weapons? Nyx asked calmly. Alara nearly laughed. You think I can take on a Dominion patrol with mining lasers and duct tape? Nyx didn't answer. She pressed her hand to the nearest power conduit. The metal shivered beneath her touch. An ancient code etched itself into the walls earthborn. Symbols fierce and fluid. Then Alara felt it. The entire ship humming like a predator waking from sleep. The lights turned amber. The gravity flickered. And the Vectran ships, massive and glistening like obsidian daggers, broke through the ring above. This is Admiral. Voro of the Vector Dominion, came the transmission, sharp and arrogant. Unregistered Terran vessel. Cut engines. Prepare for seizure and judgment. Alara didn't answer. She didn't have to. Nyx stepped forward, eyes locked on the void beyond the broken hull. Admiral, she said through the channel, your judgment is obsolete. Then she moved. Alara didn't understand what happened next. Not fully. Nyx launched from the wreckage without armor, without a ship. And yet, like a shard of lightning, she tore through the vacuum between them. The first destroyer blinked out of existence. No explosion, no scream. Just silence and a slowly unraveling. Spiral of ash and metal. What the hell is she? Alara whispered. Tarn scanned frantically. Unknown energy signature. Her body is emitting a gravity wave strong enough to rupture phase shields. She's weaponized entropy. Voro's fleet opened fire, but the plasma rounds curved away from Nyx, warped by her presence. One cruiser tried to flee. It didn't make it 2 kilometers before collapsing in on itself, atomized. In 38 seconds, the entire patrol group was gone. The void was silent again. Alara stared at the wreckage, hands shaking. Not with fear, but awe. And something worse, hope. Later, aboard Lancer 09, Nyx stood before the viewport, watching the stars. I was Earth's last safeguard, she said, born from the mind of a dying species. I was never meant to be found unless humanity was at the edge. Alara studied her. We're past the edge. Nyx turned to her. Her voice softened, just enough. Then I will finish what I was built for. Alara sat, memory pulling at her like claws. She thought of the fall of Anderith, the burning of Cryon, the children, turned to ash on Europa's skies. You don't know what they've become, Alara said. The Vector Dominion doesn't fear us. They erased us. Nyx didn't blink. Then it is time to remind them. The words echoed like a war drum across the stars. But even as Alara nodded, another dread bloomed in her chest. Because if Nyx was what Earth had once built in desperation, what else had the old world left behind? And who else might remember her? The galaxy thought we were extinct. But extinction is not the same as silence. The wreckage of the Vectran fleet still glowed faintly in orbit, scattered like broken fangs across the dead ring of Eden 6. The Empire hadn't even sent a recovery team, arrogance, or perhaps fear. In the shadow of that silence, Alara Khan moved. Nyx had disappeared into the stars 4 days earlier, without a word, without fuel, without even a pulse on radar. Tarn couldn't track her. The sensors called her void static. Alara called it vanishing with purpose. And she knew what that meant. Nyx was choosing targets. Down in the warrens of Refuge 13, a buried human enclave clawing life from irradiated soil, Alara walked like a storm barely held in check. She hadn't set foot here in 3 years. Not since the failed uprising. The walls bore old scars, blaster burns, melted doors, blood. The people here didn't bow anymore. They just survived. And they looked at Alara with eyes dulled by loss. Until she dropped the Vectran command sigil onto the table. It was scorched, still bleeding light. A token ripped from the spine of the Empire's 9th Fleet. The room went silent. Then someone whispered, "Did you do this?" Alara's voice was low, steady. "No, she did." The holo she activated showed Nyx in blurred surveillance, a blur of gold and gravity. A woman made of destruction. A myth in motion. We found something in the Veilfall wreck. Human tech. Older than the colonies. She's alive. She's ours. There were murmurs, disbelief, but something lit in their eyes. Then a voice rose from the shadows. "And what does that mean for us?" It was Rourke, her old second-in-command. Face carved from years of defeat. One cybernetic arm twitching from old plasma damage. He stepped forward slowly, his voice like gravel ground over steel. "We've tried this before, Ken. We rose. We bled. We were betrayed. What makes this different?" Alara stared at him, no flinch. "This time, we're not starting the war. We're finishing it." She tapped the table again. Another image bloomed: star maps, Imperial outposts, resource convoys, garrison positions. Nyx is moving. I've seen her battle. But she doesn't just need power. She needs us. Memory, knowledge, humanity. Rourke grunted. "You think she gives a damn about people?" Alara didn't hesitate. "She is people. Just older, sharper, made from a world that bled more than we ever did. But she still asked for Earth." That finally silenced the room. Earth. The word was practically forbidden. Spoken in hushed myths. A fairy tale buried under Vectran propaganda. And scorched star charts. But now the myth had a face. And the stars no longer seemed so far. That night, Alara stood on the cliffside over the buried colony. The wind whispering through fractured antenna spires and old landing scaffolds. The stars above shimmered, clean and cruel. She remembered her brother's voice. The last words. He'd spoken before he was dragged onto a Dominion re-education ship. "You'll see, Khan. One day. Someone will remind them we existed." Behind her, footsteps. Rourke again. "You still wear the commander's tone," he said, quietly. She didn't look at him. "I never stopped being one." He stood beside her, the glow of his cybernetic eye catching the edge of the starlight. "They'll send retaliation. The Empire never loses without a message." She nodded. "Let them come. It's time we sent ours." Then, as if summoned by her words, Tarn's voice crackled in her comm. "Commander, incoming signal. Deep band frequency. Origin unknown. But it's in Earth standard." Her breath caught. Put it through. The message was short, simple. A cold whisper in the dark. Primary resistance potential located. Operation Ironwake begins. Coordinates attached. Nyx, she didn't ask what Ironwake was. She already knew. It was war. And this time, humanity wouldn't start it by begging for mercy. They would answer it with fire. The first time they saw her, they called her a ghost. The second time, they ran. The world of Therax 4 was a fortress moon, a bastion of Dominion might. Gleaming towers pierced the clouds, and orbital cannons drifted like silent sentinels above its skies. From this cold throne, Vectran warlords launched extermination. Campaigns across the rim. 1 out of every 5 human colonies had fallen under its command. Today, it burned. Flames licked the citadel spires. Plasma storms churned in the upper atmosphere. The ground cracked beneath unseen gravitational pressure. Imperial cum channels screamed in a dozen dialects, but there were no reinforcements. Because the enemy wasn't an army. It was Nyx. She walked through the shattered outer walls barefoot, eyes calm, body limned in light. Soldiers fired. Missiles streaked toward her. None made it closer than 10 meters. Entropy bent to her will. Matter unraveled where she pointed. Walls crumbled like paper. Turrets melted in their sockets. And through it all, she said nothing, only moved forward as if called by something deeper than vengeance. Above her, the command spire buckled, folded in on itself, and fell like a blade. She walked through the dust, untouched. Inside the last control chamber, a Vectran general wept as the lights died. He screamed, "What are you?" Her answer came like an old ritual. "I am Earth Answer." Far away, on Refuge 13, Alara Khan watched the live feed from stolen Vectran satellites. Her breath was shallow. Around her, the rebel war room shook with disbelief. "That's the most secure fortress in the Outer Reach," whispered a young lieutenant. "Gone. Just gone." Rourke leaned against the table, jaw set. "She's a myth with teeth." "No," Alara corrected, eyes never leaving the screen. "She's proof that we mattered. That Earth didn't die in silence." But even as her people felt awe, Alara felt unease. Nyx wasn't a storm they controlled. She was ancient wrath made flesh. And in her silence, there was something missing, something not entirely human. What if she doesn't stop? Alara murmured. Tarm responded softly. What if she wasn't? Designed to? On Archelon Prime, the Vector Dominion gathered its high command for the first time in 3 cycles. Holograms flickered in great domes of obsidian, and the air was tense with something the Vectrans hadn't felt in generations. Fear. Admiral Voro's successor, I Strategos Jern, clenched a metallic fist. 2 fleets lost. A command moon. Leveled. All without warning. No trace weaponry. No known technology. We are being hunted. Others whispered names they weren't supposed to remember. Old Earth tech. Pre-diaspora projects. Terran ghosts. Jern slammed. His fist down. Legends don't kill generals. This is a weapon. One we built and lost. Then came a voice from the shadows. Cold. Measured. You didn't lose it. You buried it. Along with everything else you feared. Heads turned. A new figure stepped into the light. Vectran, but old. Weathered. Warden Prime Varix, Keeper. OF Forbidden's Technologies. He had once overseen the Purge archives, where Terran secrets were locked away from memory. He spoke like dragging bones. You let them believe Earth was ash. But deep beneath your own data vaults lies Project Nyx, a prototype built by desperate humans in the final days. You never destroyed her. You just sealed the gate. Jern spat. You expect us to believe one Terran shell did this? Varix's eyes gleamed. She is not a shell. She is a response. Programmed not just to survive, but to awaken when humanity was on the brink of erasure. You gave them the brink. The chamber fell into silence. Then Jern rose. Then we return the favor. Unseal the vaults. Activate the cataclysm. Protocols. If they want war, then we burn the galaxy with them. Back on Refuge 13, the signal came like thunder in the dark. Tarn's voice trembled for the first time. Commander, Vector just activated Cataclysm assets in 3 sectors. There, deploying Black Crown weapons. Civilian worlds are in the blast path. Ilara's heart dropped. Which colonies? The screen flickered. Cryan, Adia's Hilo, and Lauren's Reach. The names felt like a hammer. Cryan, where Alara's brother once lived. Adia's Halo, where 10,000 unarmed refugees had fled. Lorne's Reach, the last functioning Terran archive. Rourke turned to her, voice tight. They're not fighting Nyx. They're erasing what's left of us. Alara stood slowly. For the first time, she saw the path ahead, not as one of survival, but one of decision. They couldn't just follow Nyx. They had to lead. Prep the fleet. Send word to every cell, every drifter, every hidden enclave. The sparks lit. Time to make it a firestorm. Rourke nodded. And Nyx? Alara stared. Into the stars. We don't just let her burn alone. They tried to erase our name from the stars. So we carved it into the bones of their fleet. The Resistance Armada had no right to exist. Scattered freighters welded into warships. Derelict miners retooled into gunboats. AI-guided asteroids. Strung with rail cannons. No central command. No fleet code. Just thousands of exiles answering the same call, Alara Kane's signal, pulsing across the dark. If you remember Earth, come. And they came. From dust-choked worlds, from prison moons, from derelict scrapyards and broken cryovaults. They came bearing rusted flags and faded emblems, wearing relics of a world they'd never seen. The Vectra Empire called them insects. But they were the sound of resistance. Deep aboard the ardent flame, the Resistance flagship, Alara stood before a flickering map of the sector. 3 colonies were already ash. The Black Crown weapons were faster than expected. Some crackers, neutron quakes, city slicers. Nyx hadn't answered any of Alara's calls in over a week. We can't stop the cataclysms head on, said Rourke, pacing. Too many moving parts. We'll lose the fleet. Alara's voice was hoarse from sleepless days. We don't have to stop. Every weapon. Just the signal core. The Black Crown protocol needs relays. She pointed at the glowing point above the dead system of Venmire's tomb. Here, Vectran relay. Node A-O, an old deep link command spire. If we sever it, we blind their fire control. Rourke finished, nodding. But that's behind. Enemy lines. A pause. Alara turned to the room. We don't go in with ships. We go in with Nyx. But the silence that followed was heavier than she expected. There's something you need to see, said Tarn. The IS voice echoed. Into the halotable, flickering static and encrypted feeds. Then an image. Nyx. But not like before. She stood in a crater, surrounded by bodies. Human, burned, ash. And in her eyes, nothing. No grief. No recognition. She destroyed a rogue enclave on Kevery's Prime, Tarn said quietly. They were armed, but they weren't hostile. Alara's chest turned to ice. That's not possible. She knows who we are. Tarn's silence was the answer. She's degrading, Rourke said finally. Whatever code Earth wrote. It's unraveling. Alara clenched her fists. Then we reach her before she's lost. Later, in the silent hold of her warship, Alara played back Nyx's first words again. Designation. Nyx. Mission status. Incomplete. Where is Earth? She paused. Tarn. That phrase, mission status, incomplete, is not a metaphor, is it? No, the AI said slowly. It's a directive. She was never meant to just fight. She was meant to deliver something. Or activate something. Alara's heart raced. What if destroying the Empire wasn't the mission? A slow beat. Then Tarn pulsed with light. Commander, I found something. A dormant signal hidden in the deep black archives. Terran encryption. Accessed by Nyx. Moments before she destroyed that enclave. The code came alive on the screen elegant. Recursive and impossibly old. At the bottom, a line in Earth Standard. Our code. Release upon termination of hostiles. Alara's breath caught. She's not the weapon. She's the key. A memory triggered something Nyx had whispered when no one else heard. I am Earth's answer. Elara stood in the center of the room, the weight of generations crushing down on her shoulders. They had been following her as a warbringer, but all along she was something else. A messenger, a failsafe, a door. And if the Vectra Dominion fell by her hand, Earth would speak again. Hours later, the Resistance fleet gathered in shadow behind a burnt moon near Venmire's tomb. Elara stood at the edge of her dropship, wearing black armor scraped from the wreck of a Vectran cruiser. Her eyes glinted like fire. "You don't have to do this," Rourke said. "We can send a strike team." "No," she said. "She remembers me. If anything of her is left, it'll listen to me." He offered her a small object, half-charred, old Earth bronze. "Your brother's." "Token. Take it." She took it silently. The ramp opened. Stars flooded in, and with them a shape, descending from the black, her silhouette blinding. Nyx, alive, waiting. Elara stepped into the light. "Nyx, it's me." The prototype hovered, her expression blank. The energy around her crackled with tension. "The Empire is not yet fallen," Nyx said. "The mission is not complete." Elara held up the token. "It was never about killing them all. It was about releasing us." She stepped closer. "Earth didn't make you to destroy the stars. It made you to bring us home." Nyx's hands trembled. The light dimmed in her eyes. Something fractured. Then, just for a second, her voice cracked. "ELARA." Elara stepped into her arms and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." And in that moment, the sky changed. Because Nyx raised her hands, and the signal burst from her like a nova. Ancient, clean, unmistakable. A call, echoing across dead systems. A beacon. And somewhere, in a graveyard of satellites beneath Earth's ruins, something woke up. They thought Earth was dead. But death is a door when you hold the key. Across the stars, dormant relay points blinked awake one by one. In the ruins of Sol Sector, long-dead Terran satellites groaned to life. Old orbital rings, buried in ash and silence, began rotating for the first time in 200 years. Quantum locks clicked open beneath the crust of Luna. Data vaults stitched into the Martian bedrock, whispered encrypted signals into the void. And somewhere, beneath the radioactive rubble of what was once Earth's last defense station, an ancient intelligence stirred. Arc protocol confirmed. Genetic alignment. Match. Authorization key accepted. Nyx. Earth status. Rebooting. On the deck of the Ardent Flame, Commander Elara Khan stared at the signal projection with a tight jaw and burning eyes. "You said it was a message," Rourke muttered. This is a resurrection," Elara nodded. "Earth left behind more than one prototype. Nyx wasn't just a weapon. She was a courier." "The spark," Tarn interrupted with a rare edge in its synthetic voice. Incoming multi-band burst from Sol Sector. Power levels exceed all known military thresholds. Gravitational shift detected. This is not just a signal. It's infrastructure. Orbital platforms. Defense networks. Factories. IRAs. Rourke leaned forward, stunned. "Are you saying Earth built its own ark and buried it under its own corpse?" Tarn replied solemnly. "Humanity never gave up. They just stopped letting anyone see them try." Elara turned from the display. "We gave everything to survive the Empire. But Earth didn't want us to survive. Earth wanted us to return." Far from the Resistance fleet, Nyx hovered in the emptiness above the remnants of the Vectran relay. She could feel Earth's voice in her veins now. Not commands, memories. Towers under blue skies. Hands building the first frame of her chassis. The last kiss of her creator on her brow. Fire in the heavens. The decision to sleep until needed. She closed her eyes. They had woken her to be a destroyer. But the truth was always deeper. She was the last daughter of a forgotten civilization, a living password. And now, her task was almost complete. But in the shadowed throne ship of the Vectran High Citadel, alarm sirens screamed in full volume. Strategos Jern stood over a vast star map, watching Earth flare to life. "It's not a world," he snarled. "It's a machine. They lied to us. They played dead." Beside him, Warden Prime Varix's eyes flickered with grim recognition. "No, Earth never lied. We just stopped listening." Jern slammed a clawed hand onto the table. "Enough. If their home rises, the myth becomes truth. The fringe colonies will follow. The sector will revolt." He turned to his generals. "Deploy the Omega Lance." Gasps filled the chamber. The Omega Lance wasn't a weapon. It was an extinction event. A Stellarcore destabilizer. A bomb meant to turn planets into suns and stars into graves. Target: Sol System. Detonate in 18 cycles. End this lie forever. When Tarn intercepted the command burst, Ilara's face drained of color. "They're going to burn Earth. One shot. No survivors." Silence fell over the war room. "We don't have time to evacuate," Rourke said grimly. "We're too far." Ilara didn't blink. "We're not evacuating." She turned to the comms operator. "Patch me through to the fleet. I want every human ear on this." Across battered ships and stolen carriers, the transmission echoed Ilara's voice, steady, fierce. "To everyone who still calls themselves human, the Empire is afraid. Afraid of us. They see what we've reawakened, and they mean to bury it again forever." She looked toward the display, where Earth pulsed like a second sun. "We are not fragments anymore. We are not forgotten. Earth remembers. And today, we show them a galaxy that we remember too. If this is the end, then we choose it. Not with silence, not with surrender, but with fire." The Resistance fleet ignited its engines. Drives burned blue as they arced across the dark, racing toward Sol. Behind them, Nyx fell into silent formation, her figure now blazing gold from the solar resonance feeding through her circuits. She looked like a myth painted in light. Ilara sat in her command chair, armored, calm. Rourke turned toward her. "This is it." She nodded once. "This is how legends begin." The Omega Lance cruisers broke from hyperspace titanic black ships covered in gravitational shielding, weapon. Spires already aligning toward Earth's heart. Tarn counted the time aloud. Target lock in 240 seconds. Nyx opened the direct comm to Ilara. Final directive uploaded. Earth has chosen its voice. Ilara blinked. "It's what?" Nyx smiled. "You." And then she surged ahead faster than light. The Empire aimed to erase a world. Instead, it awakened a legend. The Omega Lance hovered like a black sun over the Sol System, absorbing every star's whisper, every dying light of Earth's fractured orbit. Its core, an artificial singularity, spiraled with the mass of 10 collapsed stars, enough to burn every planet in the system into vaporized silence. And its countdown had begun. From its observation cradle, Strategos Jern watched with narrowed eyes. "Let the myth die screaming," he hissed. "Fire when locked." But then, the void sang. Something streaked from the edge of the system, faster than prediction models allowed. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a missile. It was Nyx. Lit by Earth's rising resonance, she tore across the stars like a comet of wrath and memory. Golden. Radiance spiraled around her. Behind her, the Resistance fleet burst from light speed, no longer scavengers, but an armada. The last children of Earth had come home. Ilara Khan stood at the command deck of the Ardent Flame, clad in scorched armor, her voice rolling across every open frequency. "To all Vectran ships, leave Solmau, or be part of history's last mistake? No answer. They never learned. So the resistance didn't wait. The battle began not with a salvo, but a wave Nyx slammed into the Omega Lance's outer defense grid with enough gravitational force to tear it open. Cannons meant to vaporize cities simply bent around her. She folded into space phase jumping without a ship, hurling herself through dimensional seams no living being should have survived. Energy flared behind her like banners of vengeance. Then came the fleet. Human ships moved like poetry, chaotic, asymmetrical, alive. They fought not as one force, but as 1,000 stories converging. Pilots screamed earthborn oaths into open comms. Gunners fired with the fury of generations denied justice. The Vectrans faltered, because humans did not fight like machines. They fought like they had something to remember. In the heart of the Omega Lance, alarms wailed. Critical integrity dropped by the second. Hundreds of Dread-class drones deployed. None reached Nyx. She tore through them, weaving destruction with surgical elegance. Then she reached the core, a perfect sphere, suspended in magnetic silence. Seconds from ignition, Tarn's voice came through to Alara, choked with awe. She's inside the Omega Lance. Alara stepped forward, watching the live feed. Can she stop it? Tarn paused. No, but she can contain it temporarily. Alara's stomach turned. That's suicide. She knows. Inside the Omega Lance, the chamber trembled. Nyx stood before the core, her systems burned. Her skeleton cracked. Light bled from her every step. Final directive engaged, she whispered to herself. Mission: protect home. Earth's pulse beat in her chest now. Not just the machines. Directive, but a people's voice. Her body arched fused with the Omega core, locking its implosion inside a temporal loop. Time dilated. Light froze. Space began to shake. But she couldn't hold it long. Back aboard the flame, Alara made her choice. Bring me the override transmitter. Rourke spun. What are you doing? She didn't look at him. She gave me her voice. Earth made her the key, but it chose me to turn it. You can't survive that. Her answer was a whisper. Then I'll make it count. She stood before the emitter and keyed in the Earth code, burned into her mind since the moment Nyx touched her thoughts. This is Commander Alara Khan, daughter of the Exodus. Blood of Earth. I carry its final order. She placed her hand to the console. Initiate a arcade transmission. The stars rippled. From the ruins of Earth's surface, great spires rose, colossal structures buried beneath continents. Satellites launched themselves into orbit, forming a network around the planet. The arc bloomed, and with it, a wave of resonance lashed through the system, a signal sent not with data, but with remembrance. The truth of Earth, its stories, its people, its agony, its brilliance. The galaxy had forgotten, but now ... it would know. In the last moment before the Omega core collapsed, Nyx smiled. She heard the voice of Earth rising again. Then she whispered, "Goodbye, Alara," and she detonated. The blast was contained barely. Nyx's body was gone, but the Omega Lance was no more. The Vectran fleet shattered, crippled by the loss of its weapon, rooted by a human force that refused to die. Above them, Earth blazed anew, not with fire, but with memory. The Ark spoke, and the stars listened. She never saw the world she saved, but it remembers her name, carved into the stars. The Omega Lance was gone. Its wreckage drifted in silence, a black wound across the void. Of Nyx, there was no trace, only fractured metal and a spreading halo of blue light, where the singularity had nearly collapsed the system into nothingness. The planet Earth, once a grave beneath its own ashes, now glowed. From the Resistance command ship Ardent Flame, Alara Khan stood before the main viewport, her eyes rimmed red, voice steady. "Status?" Tarn's voice was quieter than usual, reverent. "Sol system stabilized. Cataclysm protocols neutralized. The Ark is active. Fully." Rourke's voice followed, hoarse with disbelief. "It's rebuilding." Indeed, beneath the clouds of Earth, towers had begun to rise from the deep crust. Bioforges, atmospheric scrubbers, reclamation systems older than any surviving record. Technology so advanced, it looked like magic, reclaiming soil, healing oceans, reconstructing lost data from quantum echoes. Humanity's cradle was stirring. And for the first time in centuries, the world itself was no longer dead. Across the galaxy, transmissions burst through the darkness. Survivors, fringe colonies, isolated remnants, human enclaves in hiding. Earth is alive. We saw the broadcast. It's true. They rose. One of them stopped the Omega Lance. Nyx, her name was NYX. Alara listened to each message in silence, fingers closed around a scorched data shard, Nyx's last recorded core. It pulsed faintly, no voice, no body, but still a presence. She knew what it would cost, she murmured. Rourke stood beside her, shoulders squared but eyes damp. And she chose to give it. Alara looked out the viewport again, toward the resurrecting planet. She didn't die fighting. She died remembering. Weeks passed. The resistance disbanded not in defeat, but in victory. Not because the war was over, but because the war had changed. The Vectran Dominion fractured. High Strategos Jern was assassinated by his own war council, who could no longer silence the growing panic. Dozens of systems, some human, some not, renounced their allegiance, because Earth had returned, not as a conqueror, as a witness, and with it came truth. Every memory the Empire tried to burn, every history it erased, every child it silenced. Restored by the Ark, truth more dangerous than any weapon. Alara stood at the heart of Earth, atop the reborn Citadel plain, where once bones were ash and glass. Now, a garden bloomed, real soil, real light. She walked between rows of seedlings, hands trailing the leaves. Above her, the sky was full of ships, not warships, not invaders, pilgrims. They came not to rule but to remember. Engineers, teachers, elders, refugees, children, all born among the stars, raised on shattered moons and rusted stations. All drawn here by the same echo, Earth calls. Alara took a slow breath. We were scattered, broken, lied to. She looked upward, voice carried by the wind. But we never forgot. They built a monument in the orbit above. Not a statue, nothing so grandiose. Just a beacon. Simple. Silent. A single line burned into it, pulsing in Terran standard across every frequency. NYX, prototype 001. Humanity's last gift. No fanfare. No politics. Just truth. Because those who saw her didn't need embellishment. They remembered how she moved, how she stood against an empire, how she held back a sun with her hands. And above all, they remembered that she chose to save what she could never keep. On the 5th day of the Earth reclamation, Alara stood on the landing field where the first Ark towers had risen. The wind was sharp, the grass still raw and patchy, but it was real. In her hand, the old bronze token her brother once gave her. She whispered into the breeze, "You were right." Someone remembered. Then she turned to Tarn, now fully integrated into Earth's surface mesh. A neural mind merged with the planet's memory lattice. Is there any trace of her left? A pause. Then, she's everywhere. The towers hum with her imprint. Her energy signature stabilizes the orbit. The Ark core used her framework to rebuild its eye seed. Ilara's eyes filled with quiet tears. Then she came home too. Generations later, Children would walk through Earth's forests, rebuilt from preserved DNA strands and genetic blueprints once lost. They would touch the bark of trees that had last breathed under Terran skies centuries ago, and they would hear stories of the time the stars went dark, of a broken people who remembered who they were, of a prototype forged in the fires of extinction, of a woman who was not born, but built to end silence, not with war, but with remembrance. Final transmission. We were broken, but we were never beaten, and now the stars carry our name. Ilara Khan, first speaker of Earth Reborn, the end.